Rain drummed on the glass like a steady, impatient hand. From the 39th floor, Seattle looked washed out. The harbor was a blur of gray. The highway was a ribbon of red taillights. Inside the Novodyne Systems boardroom, the light was fluorescent and unforgiving, bouncing off chrome and polished wood. Noah Reyes sat 3 chairs from the end of the long table, shoulders tight against the back of his chair, hands under the table where no one could see. His palms were damp. His phone hummed against his skin every few seconds, a tiny vibration he felt in the tendons of his wrist. Nobody was talking. On the far side of the room, the wall's screen showed a frozen slide from a client presentation. The logo of a global defense contractor hung there, above a single red word, disconnected. A clock ticked somewhere behind Noah, or maybe it was the air conditioning. He could not tell. It all blurred into the same thin, nervous sound. At the head of the table, Cassandra Cain stood with her hands resting on the back of an empty chair. The chair had been pulled out just enough to suggest someone was supposed to be sitting in it. No one was. Her suit was charcoal, perfectly pressed. Her hair was pinned up in a tight twist that did not move when she shifted her weight. She looked from face to face and did not rush. "I am going to say this once," she said. Her voice was low and even, the kind that did not need volume to be heard. The room seemed to pull tighter around it. Last night, Novodyne lost a client valued at $80 million in projected revenue. They were 6 minutes into their first live demo when our core platform crashed. Not glitched, crashed. She glanced at the frozen slide, then back at them. Their entire system went down. Their teams lost connectivity worldwide. Their trust in us evaporated. Somewhere on the left side of the table, a chair creaked. No one moved much more than that. "The failure originated inside our own network," she went on. "A bad build was pushed to production, safeguards were bypassed, logs were scrubbed." Her gaze narrowed. "That does not happen by accident." Noah felt the weight of her words slide down the table and stop in front of him. Everyone else seemed to feel it too. People stared at their notebooks, at their coffee, at the little black conference microphones in front of them. His phone buzzed in his hand again. He tilted it so the screen was hidden by the table. The log file was still open, white text on a dark background. Timestamps, commit hashes, user IDs. The same username repeated across column after column. B. Mercer. Noah's thumb hovered above the screen following the lines. The final deployment, the trigger point, was time-stamped at 01:43. He knew exactly where he had been at 01:43. In his apartment on the couch, laptop open to a cartoon about space robots, with Lily asleep with her head in his lap and an inhaler resting on the coffee table. He swallowed and slid the phone face down on his thigh. Across the table, Blake Mercer lounged in his chair, like he was at a networking event, not a funeral. His blonde hair was perfect. His shirt cuffs were crisp. A half-empty coffee cup sat in front of him, the lid marked with a name the barista had spelled wrong. He caught Noah looking just for a second and smiled. It was a quick, easy smile, the one he used on investors and visiting executives. It did not reach his eyes. Noah looked away. He could feel other eyes flickering over to him at odd angles. The junior engineer who had started 3 months ago and still wore his visitor badge clipped behind his real one just in case. The DevOps guy with a mortgage and twin babies. The QA lead who had spent the last year saving for her mother's surgery. He knew pieces of their lives in the same casual way he knew their coffee orders and their Slack handles. He also knew what would happen if nobody spoke. "We are not leaving this room," Cassandra said quietly, "until I have a name." Silence thickened. Someone cleared their throat and then stopped halfway through, as if sound itself was dangerous. Rain tapped harder on the glass and slid down in crooked lines. Noah's fingers twitched toward his phone again. He did not need to look. He could see the log in his mind now burned in sharp white lines. He could hear Blake's voice from the previous night too, in the cramped team room on the 22nd floor. "It will be fine, man. We do this all the time. We can't keep missing deadlines just because code review feels scary." Noah had pointed at the screen. "The tests are still failing. The models are unstable. We need another day." Blake had leaned in a hand on the back of Noah's chair, voice dropping so the rest of the team would not hear. "They already booked the big dogs for this demo. Cain is watching. The board is watching. You want to be the guy who tanks that because of some yellow warnings in a log file?" Noah had looked around. Tired faces, half-eaten takeout containers. People who had already given more hours than they were paid for. He had stepped back, palms up. "It is your call." "It is my neck," Blake had said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Relax, I will handle it." Now here they were. "No one has anything to say?" Cassandra asked. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. There was a slight edge to it now, a new tension like ice beginning to crack. The VP of product shifted in his seat. We are still running a root cause analysis. It is possible this was a cascade of smaller issues that only surfaced in a live environment. Some of the partners' legacy systems are not ideal. Cassandra looked at him like he had offered her gum at a funeral. I am not asking for excuses, she said. Her eyes traveled down the table again, pausing a heartbeat on each person. She knew their names, she knew their titles, she knew Noah suspected far more than that. His performance reviews, his late-night login times, the fact that he never bothered to book vacation days. He tried not to squirm when her gaze passed over him and moved on. Tried not to think about how much child support some of these people paid, how much daycare cost, how easily one lost paycheck could pull up floorboards in a life that already felt fragile. Someone exhaled a shaky breath near the door. Another manager took a long swallow of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Cassandra let the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Fine, she said. Let me be clear. If no one takes responsibility, I will assume this was a cultural problem, not an individual problem. Cultural problems are solved at scale. The implication landed hard. Departments shut down. Teams dissolved. Entire units cut and replaced. Everyone in the room had seen it happen before at other companies to other people. Noah's stomach clenched. His phone buzzed again and he ignored it. He thought of the DevOps guy's twins and their tiny socks that showed up in photos at lunch. He thought of the QA lead and her mother's surgery calendar marked in red on her desktop background. He thought of the intern whose fiancé had just lost his job in retail. He thought of Lily. Her drawing from last week was still propped against his monitor in the cramped shared office. A sun that took up half the page, a sky too blue for Seattle, a paper kite with a crooked tail. She had written in wild, blocky letters across the bottom, "My dad can fix anything." He could hear her saying it too from the back seat of his battered sedan. She always said it with that same careless certainty, as if the universe had already agreed. Noah. He jerked his head up. He had not realized Cassandra had stopped in front of him until she said his name. Their eyes met. Hers were a pale, unreadable gray. He could see his own reflection, small and blurred in them. "You have been quiet," she said. "Yes," he managed. "I am just listening." "That is good." She straightened, let her gaze sweep the room one last time. "I will ask once more. Who pushed last night's deployment?" The clock ticked. The rain whispered. Someone's pen rolled slowly toward the edge of the table and stopped. No one spoke. The pressure that had been building in Noah's chest rose higher like water against a dam. He felt it in his teeth in the back of his throat. If nobody owned this, she would do what she said. Cultural problem. Solved at scale. The entire division cut loose. Severance packages, long quiet car rides home, children asking questions in kitchens that smelled like coffee and worry. Lily's face flickered in his mind again, framed in the hood of her red sweatshirt, cheeks pink from the cold, breath-puffing white in the air. The last time her inhaler jammed, she had looked at him with wide, panicked eyes he never wanted to see again. Someone has to take this, he thought. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood. The sound was small and sharp in the large, quiet room. Dozens of heads turned toward him in the same second as if yanked by a string. He could feel the sudden weight of their attention. Some of them already knew what he was about to do. Some only hoped. Noah set his phone flat on the table in front of him, next to the dark circle left by his untouched coffee. He took a breath. "I pushed it," Noah said. His voice sounded thinner than he intended, swallowed by the size of the room. For a second he wondered if anyone had actually heard him. Then the silence changed. It went from empty to charged. Dozens of eyes focused on him with a kind of startled hunger. The VP of product sat up straighter. The junior engineer's pen stopped mid-stroke. Across the table, Blake's hand tightened around his coffee cup, then relaxed again. Cassandra did not move. "I did the final deploy," Noah said, forcing the words out before his courage retreated back down his throat. "I bypassed the checks. I pushed it out." He could feel the lie as he said it, a wrong-shaped thing scraping along his ribs. He kept his hands still on the table. If he let them shake, everything else might start shaking too. Cassandra watched him. Her expression did not change. Her eyes were very clear. "Walk me through your decision," she said. There were kinder ways to ask why. She did not use any of them. Noah wet his lips. "We were behind schedule. The client had already rescheduled the demo twice. The models looked stable enough. I thought we could patch anything small on the fly." "You thought," Cassandra repeated. "And when the alarm started firing, what did you do then?" "I was already home by then," he said. "I logged in remotely. I tried to roll back. It was too late." The images flickered in his mind close enough to truth that the story almost sat right. The notifications lighting up his phone at 2 a.m., the frantic messages in the team channel, his laptop open on the kitchen counter next to a cereal bowl he would never get around to washing. None of those things had happened because of him, but the shape of panic felt the same. "And you bypassed our safeguards," Cassandra said. "Alone." "Yes." She let the word hang in the air between them. The rain outside had softened to a steady hiss, like the sound you heard inside a car wash. It filled the spaces between her questions. "Who else reviewed your code?" she asked. Noah hesitated. He could say Blake's name. He could say that the entire pipeline required approval from the team lead. He could talk about pressure and late nights and expectations that never quite got written down anywhere, but lived in every deadline. He saw Blake out of the corner of his eye, still in that same relaxed position. There was a faint curve to his mouth again. It was not quite a smile this time, more like a rehearsal of one. "No one," Noah said. "I pushed it myself." Across the table, the DevOps engineer closed his eyes for a moment. The QA lead stared at the surface of the table so hard, Noah thought she might burn a hole through the laminate. Cassandra straightened. Her hands left the back of the empty chair and fell to her sides. "In that case," she said, "this is simple." She did not raise her voice. The room did not need volume. It needed direction. "Noah Reyes," she said, "you are terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you to your desk. You will turn in your badge and company devices before you leave the building." The words landed with a dull, heavy finality. Terminated. Not let go. Not separated. Terminated. As if she were cutting a wire that could not be spliced back together. For a beat, no one moved. Then chairs shifted. Papers rustled, small storms of motion that pretended this was routine, just another corporate moment among many. Noah stood very still. He had known this was coming from the moment he opened his mouth. He had felt it settling on his shoulders while he walked through the lie. Yet now that it was real, his body lagged behind. His ears rang. The overhead lights looked too bright. Out of instinct, his gaze drifted to the far end of the table, where the floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city. The harbor blurred and sharpened as raindrops slid down the glass. The view felt like it belonged to another person, someone whose future still moved in more than one direction. "Meeting adjourned," Cassandra said. "The rest of you expect follow-up on process and oversight. This will not happen again." Chairs scraped back. People rose, gathering laptops and notepads. Conversations did not start. Not really. There were only half sentences, the soft thump of closed folders, the quick click of heels as people found the door. No one came to stand between Noah and the exit. No one cleared their throat and said there had been a misunderstanding. He had not expected them to. It still stung. He felt a hand brush his arm and looked up hopeful for half a second, but it was only a security guard taking his cue. The man was polite, almost apologetic, built like he had once played college football and never quite lost the shape of it. His badge said C. Adler. "Mr. Reyes," Adler said quietly, "if you will come with me." Mr. Reyes, funny Noah thought. He had not heard his last name on its own in a while. At home, he was Dad. At Novodyne, he was Noah from Systems, the guy you pinged when your machine would not talk to the server. He nodded and reached for his phone. His fingers closed around the smooth metal. The log file was still open. Blake's username still marched down the screen. Noah locked the phone and slid it into his pocket. He did not look at Blake as he walked by him, but he felt the moment their paths crossed. A slight lift in the air, the way people in nearby chairs suddenly became very interested in their own belongings. Blake spoke just loud enough for Noah. Loud enough for Noah to hear. "Tough break, man," he murmured. "If there is anything I can do, reach out." Noah kept walking. The hallway outside the boardroom was cooler than the meeting space. The air smelled faintly of copier toner and the citrus cleaner the night crew used. Framed posters lined the walls, old Novodyne marketing campaigns about innovation and trust about changing the world at scale. He had once believed that kind of thing years ago, when his career felt like a rising line on a graph instead of a flat segment near the bottom. Before Novodyne, there had been a different office, a different city, San Jose, a startup with exposed brick-free kombucha and a mission statement that mentioned machine empathy 3 times in 2 sentences. He had been 27 and certain. He could still remember the night they got the funding news. Someone had popped cheap champagne. Someone else had cranked music through a flimsy Bluetooth speaker. He and Maria had walked home from the train station because the buses had stopped, and the air smelled like late summer and possibility. She had talked about a little house somewhere with a yard. He had talked about options vesting, and what that might mean in numbers using his hands more than he needed to. as he tried to make imaginary money feel like more than numbers on a slide. They had both laughed when he almost tripped off the curb. She had grabbed his sleeve, steadying him. "I cannot take you anywhere," she had said, grinning. "You can take me everywhere," he had answered, and meant it. The memory slid forward into another. Hospital lights, the sharp scent of antiseptic, a small pink hat and a plastic bassinet. Lily's fingers curled around the tip of his thumb with improbable strength. He had promised her so many things in that moment, quietly under his breath while Maria slept. Then the rain. Not Seattle rain, soft and constant. California rain, rare and sudden. The storm that came out of nowhere on a night that had started clear. Headlights cutting across lanes. A pickup drifting where it should not have been, the glow of a streetlight on wet asphalt, the sound of metal folding in on itself. When Noah thought of that night, it did not play in order. It came in flashes, the crunch, the silence after. A horn blaring somewhere in the distance stuck on an angle, the taste of blood in his mouth, Maria's hair across his face. Later, there had been forms to sign and calls to make, and a tiny voice asking why Mommy was not coming home yet. That was the hardest part, harder even than the funeral arrangements and the way well-meaning people said things like, "at least and in time." "Is Mommy still at the hospital?" Lily had asked, 3 years old and serious, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a stuffed bear in her lap. Noah had knelt on the carpet until his knees hurt. "No," he had said, "she is not." "Is she on a trip?" He had opened his mouth and closed it again. The truth felt too big and too sharp for a living room with crayon drawings on the wall. "She had to go away," he had said finally. "But she loved you. That part will not go away." Lily had thought about that for a long minute, then nodded in the solemn way children did when they decided to accept something, even if they did not really understand it. "Okay," she had said, "can we get pizza?" After the accident, offers had still come in for a while. Recruiters who had already sent emails before the news of his life breaking made it into their calendars. A company in Boston, a lab in Zurich, a West Coast giant that everyone in his field dreamed of joining. He had opened each email and pictured the reality behind it. Long flights, longer hours, late nights in glass conference rooms, his name on patents, while Lily grew up with someone else picking her up from school and kissing the top of her sleepy head. He had closed the emails and eventually the laptop. When Novodyne had reached out with a smaller offer, a role buried deep in systems, it had looked modest on paper. The pay was not spectacular. The title did not impress anyone at networking events. The hours were flexible. The night shifts could be traded. The office was a bus ride away from a 2-bedroom apartment that did not leak. Lily's daycare was on the same block. He had said yes without much hesitation. Now he was following a security guard down a hallway in that same company, his job gone, because he had tried to protect the people who protected his schedule and his precious pickup times. Adler pressed the elevator button. The doors opened with a familiar chime. Noah stepped inside, the carpeted floor soft under his shoes. As the door slid shut, he caught one last glimpse of the boardroom through the glass wall. Cassandra was still inside, speaking quietly with the VP of Product. Blake had already left. Noah faced forward and watched the numbers above the door begin to count down. The elevator hummed softly as it dropped numbers glowing and ticking down. 35, 30, 27. Noah watched them without really seeing. Adler stood beside him, hands folded in front of his belt, gaze fixed somewhere above Noah's head. The man had the practiced stillness of someone who had done this before, who knew how to be present without making things worse. At 22, the door slid open. "Your floor right?" Adler asked. "Yeah, Noah," Noah said. They stepped out into the hallway. The carpet here was older, patterned in a way that tried to hide stains, and mostly failed. Someone had taped a flyer about a charity 5K to the wall near the break room, the edges curling where the tape had given up. The open office beyond buzzed with a low, familiar noise. Fans and towers, keyboards, the soft murmur of voices. Then the murmurs faded. As Noah and Adler crossed the threshold, conversations thinned, then broke apart. People turned instinctively toward the sound of footsteps, then away just as fast. Screens became instantly fascinating. Coffee cups needed urgent attention. His own desk sat near the middle of the room, one of 4 clustered together like a little island of plastic and wires. Someone had pushed his chair in halfway. The monitor was dark. The only color was the drawing propped against the base, Lily's sun and kite. For a moment, Noah just stood there and looked at it. He had taped the drawing up 2 weeks ago after Lily insisted. "So, your computer knows you have a kid," she had said, like that was a fact you needed to remind machines of. Now the paper looked too bright against the gray of the cubicle wall. Take your time, Adler said quietly. There was a brown cardboard box already waiting on the corner of the desk, the same kind they used when people moved offices or when the IT department shipped equipment. Someone had slid it there while Noah was upstairs being fired. He picked it up and began dropping his life into it. The first thing he reached for was the mug. White ceramic, the words "N1 Dad" painted on the side in wobbly purple letters that had run a little where Lily's brush had been too wet. The handle had a chip from the time he had knocked it into the sink while answering a work call on speaker. He hesitated, thumb tracing the chipped edge, then set it carefully into the box. Next went the small stack of notebooks filled with cramped handwriting and diagrams. A bundle of pens held together with a rubber band he had snapped twice, and never bothered to replace. A charging cable that belonged more to his life than to Novadine's, worn at the connector from being jammed into too many outlets. He opened the top drawer. Inside were sticky notes, a crumpled granola bar wrapper, and Maria's old keychain, the metal worn smooth, where it had rubbed against other keys in a pocket that no longer existed. He added the keychain to the box. Someone approached from his left. The sound of footsteps was tentative, like whoever it was still deciding whether this was a good idea. Noah did not look up right away. He knew he should. Courtesy or something like it. The courage did not come. "I am sorry," a voice said finally, almost a whisper. It was Mia from QA. She stood there with her hands wrapped around a ceramic cup that read, "World's Okias Tester." Her black hair was pulled into a messy bun. Her eyes were red at the edges, as if she had been rubbing them. Noah managed a small smile. "Not your fault." She opened her mouth, closed it, then set the cup down on the edge of a neighboring desk. Her hand hovered awkwardly in the air like she wanted to squeeze his shoulder, but could not quite bring herself to cross that line in front of a security guard and an office full of staring screens. "If you need a reference or something," she said, I will tell people you are good, that you are not, reckless." "Thanks," he said. "Take care of your mom." Her eyes flicked up, startled. "How did you know I—" He nodded toward her monitor. The surgery date was still there, marked in red on the digital calendar. He had seen it 100 times on late nights when he leaned over to help her rerun a test suite. "Oh," she said, "right." Adler cleared his throat, gentle but firm enough to remind them both why he was there. Mia nodded quickly. "I will let you work." She retreated, folding herself back into her chair, shoulders hunched. Noah looked up once more and let his gaze travel over the room. He saw the DevOps engineer at the far end pretending to read something on his screen, while his jaw worked like he was grinding his teeth. The intern, who always wore the same faded hoodie 4 days a week, sat frozen hands hovering over his keyboard. None of them met Noah's eyes. It did not feel like malice. It felt like fear, as if looking too long might pull them into his gravity. He slid Lily's drawing off the base of the monitor. The tape came away with a soft ripping sound. He studied the picture for a second. The sun had a smiling face. The kite's tail was made of hearts. He laid it on top of the mug in the box. There was nothing else that belonged to him. "Ready?" Adler asked. Noah nodded. They walked back the way they had come, past rows of desks, past the break room, with its humming fridge and stale coffee smell, past the bulletin board, where someone had left a note about a lost scarf no one ever claimed. The elevator arrived with another chime. On the ride down to the lobby, no one spoke. A woman from Legal got on at 16, saw the box, and pressed herself politely into the corner. The lobby was bright and too open, all stone and glass. The security desk sat near the center, a low island with screens and a bowl of individually wrapped mints that no one ever seemed to eat. A woman from HR waited there, tablet in hand. Her name was Kara, and she had once organized a holiday potluck that half the company ignored. She looked smaller, without her usual cheerful energy. "Hi, Noah," she said. "I am sorry we are doing this like a checklist, but you know how it is." He did. They went through the steps. Laptop, phone, access card, non-disclosure reminder, final paycheck sent by direct deposit, benefits lapse date. She spoke in a steady rhythm, eyes occasionally flicking up to his face as if checking for cracks. He gave brief answers, signed what needed signing, slid his badge across the counter. It caught on the lip of the wood for a second before Adler nudged it the rest of the way. When it was done, Kara offered her hand. He shook it. "You were always one of the easy ones," she said softly. "No drama, just did the work." "Guess that did not help much," he said. She flinched just a little, then gave a small, tight nod. "Take care, Noah." He shifted the weight of the box in his arms and turned toward the glass doors. Outside, the world was a sheet of moving silver. Rain blew in sideways across the plaza, making the flagpoles shiver. The Novadine logo on the front of the building looked darker, the blue deepened by the wet stone. He paused under the overhang where the concrete stayed mostly dry. The box sat on the ground beside him for a moment while he dug his phone out of his pocket. There were 3 new messages. One from his bank about an account reminder he did not want to think about. One from a spam number trying to sell him something about extended warranties. And one from Lily's school, a cheerful update with a photo of her class holding up papier-mâché planets for a science project. Lily stood in the front row, beaming her hair slightly crooked where he had missed a section with the brush in the morning rush. She wore her plain gray sweater, the one she used for days when she had gym. The red hoodie was not in the picture. The time in the corner of the screen said 11:23. He did the math automatically. 3.5 hours until he needed to be at the curb in front of the school. Lily would come charging out of the building, backpack half open, talking faster than he could follow, cheeks flushed from whatever game they had played at recess. Seattle's damp cold had a way of sneaking into bones. It slid under collars and cuffs, found the space between socks and the top of shoes. It crawled up into lungs. He could hear again the wheeze in Lily's chest from 2 winters ago, the way each breath had sounded like it had to fight through something sticky. He remembered the tight grip of her hand around his index finger, while they waited in the urgent care lobby, the pulse in her wrist fluttering faster than it should. The inhaler had helped, warm air blankets a cartoon on a mounted television. The next morning she had bounced on the bed like nothing had happened. He had not forgotten the silence between breaths before the medicine kicked in. Noah looked down at the box at his feet. The hoodie was not there. Of course it was not. He had draped it over the back of his chair last week, when Lily had tagged along to the office for an hour after school, legs swinging as she sat and colored while he finished a ticket. He pictured it now, red against the gray fabric of the office chair, sleeves dangling, one cuff turned up to reveal the small pocket where he always tucked an extra inhaler. His stomach dropped. She would need it today. Even if she did not, he needed it to be there. He needed to know that when she reached for that familiar shape in her pocket, it would be there. Noah picked up the box again and stepped closer to the edge of the overhang. Rain flecked his face with cold drops, carried on a gust of wind that smelled like wet concrete and car exhaust. He turned back toward the glass doors of Novodyne, the building he no longer worked in, and started walking. The revolving doors pushed back against him with the weight of air conditioning and policy. Noah shifted the box to one arm and tried again. The glass disc turned just far enough to let him through. His shoes squeaked a little on the polished floor. He had taken 3 steps toward the security desk when a voice stopped him. "Sir?" The man behind the counter had thick forearms and a buzz cut that did not quite hide the gray coming in. His nameplate said J. Harper. His eyes flicked from Noah's face to the box, then to the empty place on his shirt where a badge had hung an hour ago. "You cannot come back in," Harper said. "You have been processed out." "I know," Noah said. He hitched the box higher on his hip. "I just need to grab something from my desk. It will take 30 seconds. Harper shook his head. "Once HR clears you, you are no longer an employee. No badge, no access. That is the rule." "It is my daughter's jacket," Noah said. He heard how fast his words came out and forced himself to slow down. "Red hoodie Little has a pocket with her inhaler in it. She left it on my chair last week. She needs it." Harper's mouth tightened a fraction. "You should have taken your personal items with you. That is what the box is for." Noah fought the urge to glance over his shoulder at the rain. "I did not think about it. I was just fired in front of half the leadership team. My brain skipped a step. Can you buzz me up? I will go straight there. You can watch me on the cameras if you want." "Not my call," Harper said. "Policy is clear. No re-entry after termination without prior approval." "Then call whoever you need to call," Noah said. "Please, she is 7. She gets sick easy. It is cold out." Harper exhaled through his nose. For a moment he looked almost apologetic. Then the professional mask returned. "Look, I am sorry," he said. "I do not have that kind of authority. You are not on the directory anymore. If I let you back in and something goes wrong, that lands on me." "So, that is it?" Noah asked. "You know it is there. You know why I need it. And we are going to let a jacket sit on a chair upstairs while my kid walks home in the rain wheezing because of a rule." Harper's jaw set. His hands planted a little wider on the desk. "You should have thought about that before you pushed code that took down our biggest client," he said. The words hit harder than they should have. Noah felt heat climb up the back of his neck. He did not know if it was anger or shame, maybe both. People coming and going at the turnstiles slowed, then sped up the way they did when they sensed something uncomfortable nearby and wanted no part of it. He tightened his grip on the box. For a second he imagined hurling it at the desk. Imagine mugs and papers and pieces of his small life breaking across the tiled floor. He did nothing. Behind him, the revolving doors spun again. A rush of colder air rolled across the lobby. Footsteps clicked on stone. Harper straightened. Ms. Kane. Noah turned. Cassandra Kane walked in from the rain without an umbrella. Water darkened the shoulders of her charcoal suit. Droplets clung to the ends of her hair, a few strands loose now, where they had escaped from the twist. She did not look any less composed for it, just more real, as if the weather had drawn her into the same world as everyone else. She took in the scene with a quick sweep of her eyes. Noah, the box, Harper stiff behind the desk. "What is the issue?" she asked. Harper shifted his weight. "Former employee trying to access the building, ma'am. I was explaining the policy." Cassandra's gaze moved back to Noah. It lingered on the cardboard box, then slid to his empty chest, then back to his face. "What do you need from upstairs?" she asked. Noah swallowed. The words felt small in his mouth, too ordinary for how his heart was beating. "My daughter's hoodie," he said. "Red. She left it on my desk. There is an inhaler in the pocket. I did not grab it." For a few seconds, Cassandra said nothing. She just looked at him, really looked as if weighing something that had nothing to do with jackets. Then she turned her head toward Harper. "Let him in," she said. Harper blinked. "Ms. Kane, with all respect, that is against procedure. Once HR terminates someone, re-entry is restricted. If this is a matter of retrieving personal property, facilities can box it and ship it. We have a form for that." "I am not interested in the form," Cassandra said. "I am interested in the jacket and the inhaler that are sitting at his desk." Harper shifted his stance again. "I could lose my job over this." Cassandra's eyes did not soften. "You will not." He hesitated, then reached for the switch that controlled the turnstile gate. The light turned from red to green with a soft electronic click. Cassandra stepped aside, holding an arm out the barest fraction. "Go," she said to Noah, "before someone decides to print a new policy." Noah did not trust his voice. He just nodded, picked up the box and moved through the open lane. His shoes left faint wet prints on the floor. He reached the bank of elevators and pressed the call button. The door slid open almost immediately. He stepped in. A second later, Cassandra joined him. The elevator doors closed, sealing out the lobby noise. The hum of the cables and machinery took over the sound of a living building. For 2 floors, they said nothing. Noah watched the numbers climb. 2, 5, 10. The reflection in the brushed metal showed him and Cassandra standing side by side, the distance between them looking smaller in the distorted surface than it felt. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Her voice cut cleanly through the soft mechanical noise. Noah did not pretend not to understand. "Push the build." "No," she said. She turned her head just enough to see him. "Take the blame." He felt his throat dry out. There were 100 answers. None of them sounded good in his head. "You already said what you needed to say upstairs," she went on. "But that was to the room. You are not talking to the room now." He kept his eyes on the panel. Someone had to. "That is not an answer," she said. He took a breath through his nose. The air smelled faintly of metal and whatever cleaning solution the janitorial staff favored. His fingerprints stood out white on the cardboard where he gripped the box. "If nobody did," he said slowly, "you made it pretty clear you would treat it as a group problem." She did not deny it. "You would have cut the division," he said, "or gutted it. Some of those people are hanging on by the last thread they have. Mortgages, medical bills, daycare. I have heard enough break room conversations to know." "And you do not have any of those things?" she asked. "I have rent," he said, "and a kid who thinks boxed mac and cheese is a treat. We can downsize. I can pick up contract work. It will be hard. It will not kill us." He thought of Mia's mother, of the DevOps engineer's twins, of the intern who had to choose between gas money and lunch sometimes. "I am not saying they cannot survive a layoff," he added. "I am saying some of them will break in a way they do not come back from. I have already been there." The elevator floated past 18. Cassandra watched him for another quiet second. "You speak like a man who did not cause the crash," she said. He met her eyes for the first time since they stepped in. "I took the blame," he said. "That is what matters." Her expression did not change, but something in her gaze sharpened like a camera coming into focus. The elevator chimed and stopped at 22. The door slid open to the familiar hallway, patterned carpet, the faint smell of burnt coffee from the break room. Cassandra gestured with a small tilt of her head. "Lead the way." People looked up as they walked through the open office. The effect of this time was different. It was one thing to watch a man escorted out by security. It was another to see that same man return with the CEO at his shoulder. Conversations stumbled, chairs half-turned, fingers froze above keyboards. A few monitors conveniently needed adjustment. Noah pretended not to notice. He steered around clusters of desks until he reached his own island of 4. His chair waited where he had left it. So did the hoodie. The red fabric draped over the backrest in a little slump, the arms hanging down. One sleeve was inside out. A dried line of orange juice traced a stain near the hem from a spill in the car last month. He set the box down on the floor and picked up the hoodie with both hands. It was still soft from too many cycles in a cheap laundromat machine. When he pressed it to his chest, it smelled like Lily's shampoo and the faint chalk scent of sidewalk dust. He slid his fingers into the side pocket and closed them around the cool plastic of the inhaler. The shape of it in his palm eased something tight inside him. "Thank you," he said quietly. Cassandra stood a few steps back, hands loosely clasped in front of her. She looked out of place here among the scuffed desks and fraying swivel chairs like someone had cut her out of a magazine and pasted her onto the scene. "I reviewed the deployment logs last night," she said. Her tone had changed. Less executive, more engineer. Line by line. "I know the patterns of my teams. People leave fingerprints in code." Noah folded the hoodie over his arm. "And the failure did not originate in any module you have touched in the last month," she said. "The commit history attached to your account does not match your style. The timestamps do not align with your recorded access. According to the system, you were not even on the network when the push went through." He felt his heartbeat pick up. "Then why ask me in front of everyone this morning?" "Because logs tell me what happened," she said. "They do not tell me who you are." He stared at her. The background noise of the office faded, replaced by the rush of blood in his ears. "You did not cause the crash, did you, Mr. Reyes?" she asked. He opened his mouth. The truth pressed against his tongue. The names, the sequence of events, the fear all crowded together at the edge of speech. He closed his mouth again. Cassandra watched the struggle play across his face. She seemed to read his silence like another kind of log. "You do not look like a man who lies well," she said. "Then why fire me?" he asked. The question came out rougher than he intended. "If you had doubts, if you knew the log did not feel right, why go through the whole show?" She studied him for a long moment, eyes moving over the tired lines at the corners of his mouth, the tension in his shoulders, the way he still held the hoodie like it was the only solid thing in the room. "Because I needed to see what you would do when everything was taken away," she said. The words landed light and heavy at the same time. He did not know what to do with them. He bent, picked up the box with his free hand, and straightened. The muscles in his back protested. "If you are finished testing me," he said, "I should go. I still have to figure out how to tell my daughter her dad lost his job. Again." He turned toward the aisle. "Reyes," Cassandra said. He stopped. When he faced her, she had stepped closer. The busy office lay in a wide circle around them, people pretending not to listen, ears angled just enough to catch every word. "Come with me," she said. There was no explanation in her voice, no hint of destination, just a simple invitation that did not match the power she carried. Noah looked at her hand as she lifted it slightly, not quite offering it, not quite keeping it to herself. Then he looked past her toward the elevator bank at the end of the row, the polished doors reflecting the glow of overhead lights. He shifted the box to a more secure grip, adjusted the hoodie on his arm, and nodded once. "Okay," he said. They walked side by side toward the elevators. Conversations picked back up in their wake, louder than they needed to be. The numbers above the doors blinked as a car arrived and opened to receive them. The elevator doors closed on the curious faces in the open office and sealed Noah and Cassandra into a small chrome box. This time she reached past the usual cluster of buttons that covered the lower half of the panel. Her finger moved to a narrow vertical strip of glass above them, blank, except for a faint outline. She pressed it. A muted beep sounded. The display flashed once, then a new number appeared, 58. Noah frowned. He had never seen that number light up before. The top of the published directory stopped at 52, the executive floor, with a penthouse level above that reserved for special events. He looked at her questions sitting just behind his tongue. Cassandra kept her eyes on the closed doors. Droplets of rain still clung to the ends of her hair. One slid down to her collar and disappeared into the dark fabric of her suit. The elevator began to move. It did not feel like the familiar ride between the lower floors. The acceleration was smoother, the hum deeper, as if the car was being guided on a different track. Noah felt a slight change in pressure in his ears as the numbers climbed past 22, 30, 40. "Is 58 a real floor?" he asked. "Yes," Cassandra said. "I have never heard anyone mention it." "You were not supposed to," she said. He did not push. He had the sense he was already further inside something than most people ever got. The floor indicator slid from 53 to 58 without stopping. The elevator slowed, then came to a gentle halt. The doors slid open on a hallway Noah had never seen. The lighting was different here, cooler, whiter, not the slightly yellow hue from the older fluorescents downstairs. The walls were smooth, a soft gray that absorbed some of the echoes. The carpet was dark and unpatterned, no attempt to hide stains because there were no stains. There were no framed posters, no flyers about 5Ks, no noise except the faint whisper of air through discreet vents in the ceiling. At the end of the hall, a double door waited. A rectangular panel beside it glowed faint blue. Cassandra stepped out. Her heels made almost no sound on the carpet. "Come on," she said. Noah followed the box, bumping lightly against his leg with each step. The hoodie lay across the top, the red bright in the sterile corridor. At the panel, Cassandra placed her palm flat against the glass. A soft chime answered. Her handprint bloomed briefly in pale green light, then faded as the locks in the door clicked open. The door swung inward with a smooth, expensive motion. Cold air brushed Noah's face. The room beyond looked like something out of a different company, maybe a different world. He had spent 4 years inside Novodyne's guts and had thought he had a sense of its shape. This space rewrote that map in an instant. Rows of high-resolution displays curved along one wall, surfaces alive with moving graphs and dense clusters of code. In the center of the room, a circular console rose waist-high, ringed with more screens and a handful of chairs on casters. Suspended above the console in what looked like a transparent frame was a 3-dimensional network of light threads of blue and white pulsing and shifting in slow, intricate patterns. A low, constant vibration hung in the air, the quiet heartbeat of stacked servers somewhere behind the walls. The air smelled faintly of ozone and metal, sharper than the rest of the building. A few people sat scattered around the room, focused on their stations. Their badges were turned inward, their screens angled in that particular way that meant whatever they were doing did not exist on any official floor plan. In the center of the largest display on the far wall, a single word floated in clean white letters. Oraclenet. Noah stopped just inside the door. He had heard the rumors. Every big tech company had ghost stories. Secret projects in basements, government contracts tucked behind shell organizations, rooms where you needed a retinal scan to get in. He had filed them away as idle speculation, the way you did when your days were spent rebooting machines and monitoring service tickets. Now he stood in the middle of one. "What is this?" he asked, voice low without meaning to be. "The part of Novodyne that does not officially exist," Cassandra said. She walked toward the central console. As she moved, the few people at stations glanced up. Some hid it better than others, but all of them registered Noah with quick, sharp looks. A stranger in a place that did not accept strangers. "He is with me," Cassandra said without breaking stride. That seemed to be enough. She stopped at the console and tapped a command into a slim keyboard. The 3-dimensional network above them shifted lines of light, rearranging into a different configuration. On the wall, the main display view changed. Charts shrank. New windows opened. Oraclenet, Noah read quietly. The word tasted both familiar and not. There had been a code name floating through older documentation, but it had always been redacted before it reached his level. "It is our flagship system," Cassandra said. "Our real one. Everything else we sell, all the enterprise suites, all the tools, they pay the bills. This is what we build when no one is watching." On the display, a cascade of numbers poured down a column, then resolved into a set of rounded rectangles representing different data streams. Lines connected them, flickering as information passed between nodes. "It learns continuously," she said. "Adapts its own internal structures. We built in guardrails, but it is not simple pattern matching. It is not a toy model. This is the closest thing to a general reasoning engine we have ever seen outside of speculative papers." Noah set the box down near one of the unused chairs. The weight lifted from his arms, but not from his body. "How long has this been here?" he asked. 5 years, she said, "since before you joined. And you are showing it to me because someone is trying to break it," she said, "and they tried to break you along the way." She hit another key. The main display wiped to black, then filled with a new scene. Grainy footage from a ceiling-mounted camera, the fisheye view of a small windowless room. Noah recognized the server room on 21, the metal racks, the narrow aisle between them, the hum of fans. He had spent enough nights in that room tracing down physical errors to know it by the shape of its shadows. On the recording, the door opened. A figure stepped in. The hood of a dark sweatshirt was pulled up, shadowing their face. The timestamp in the corner read 0113. The figure moved with purpose. No hesitation at the entry pad. No pausing to read labels. They made for the central terminal in the room and sat down. The glow of the screen lit the lower half of their face. Gloved hands moved over the keyboard with quick confidence. Windows opened on the monitor. Lines of code crawled past too fast for Noah to read at this distance. Pause, Cassandra said. The footage froze. The figure looked up just for a second as if hearing something in the hallway. The camera captured enough. The angle was not flattering. It never was in these rooms. Even so, the jawline, the slope of the nose, the particular set of the eyes were unmistakable. Blake Mercer. Noah felt his stomach turn. He took a step closer without thinking. The elevator ride. The boardroom. The little twist of a smile when Noah had stood up and taken the blame. All of it replayed in his head with a new layer laid over it. Cassandra watched his reaction. This is from 2 nights ago, she said. The night before the demo. The login credentials in use are yours. Another window appeared alongside the video, this one a familiar log view. Lines of text arranged in tight rows. Process IDs. Usernames. IP addresses. At the top, a timestamp matched the one in the video. User in Rise. IP addressed a string of numbers that was not Noah's workstation. The internal logs show this as your session, Cassandra said. According to the system you accessed, the core modified the deployment scripts and injected new instructions into Aura Clenet's learning loop. She tapped a key and the view scrolled, more entries all tagged with his username. Clearly I did not, Noah said. His voice sounded distant in his own ears. Clearly Cassandra agreed. You do not move like someone who can do this and sleep at night. She highlighted the IP field. The screen split again, tracing the connection through internal routes and out into the wider network. This is where it actually came from, she said. The path ended in a simple line of text. External source 73.92481 toll. Residential fiber connection in Capitol Hill, she said. Registered to a Blake A. Mercer. On some level, Noah was not surprised. The moment he saw Blake in the video, his brain had already started pulling together everything it knew about the man. The late nights he had left others to clean up. The shortcuts he took. The times he had glossed over issues for the sake of a cleaner slide deck. Seeing it laid out in numbers made it real in a different way. So, he spoofed my account, Noah said. Piggybacked the credentials, routed the activity through here, made sure the logs would point down instead of sideways. Among other things, Cassandra said. She brought up another window, an email thread unfolded line by line. Subject lines, opportunity, discussing potential partnership, follow up. The sender domain was familiar, HelioCore Labs, one of Novodyne's competitors. They specialized in industrial optimization, but had recently made headlines for their own work in adaptive systems. Blake's name sat at the top of each message from Novodyne's side. Noah read fragments as Cassandra scrolled. Authority, access, compensation. There were hints of numbers vague enough to leave room for deniability, clear enough that nobody could pretend this was a casual chat. At the bottom of the thread, a final message. Once Aura Clenet is compromised, your team will have a competitive advantage impossible to match. I can ensure the system is unstable enough to scare away current investors. In exchange, I expect an executive role and equity. Noah looked away. He sold you out, he said. Not just me, Cassandra said. Everyone here. Everyone whose work fed into this place. People who will never know their models were tampered with because he covered his tracks at their level. She closed the email window, and the room felt a fraction darker. The scheduled client demo was not the real target, she said. The failure you saw this morning was just the first crack. If last night's build had gone live as planned, the corruption in Aura Clenet would have compounded. The system would have started making unstable decisions, then protecting those decisions in its own logic. By the time anyone saw it, it would look like we had no control over our own creation. The worst possible headline for a company like this, Noah said. Exactly, she said. He let all of it settle. The footage, the logs, the emails. The realization that someone he had reported to for years had been playing a different game entirely. Why did you not show this to the board this morning? He asked. You had enough to at least raise questions. I had enough to suspect, she said, not enough to close the loop. The IP trail did not come together until after midnight. The internal investigation team confirmed the HelioCore connection an hour before sunrise. By then I had already decided how to use you. He flinched at the phrasing. Use me, he repeated. She met his gaze without flinching. Blake has been feeding me reports about you for months, she said. He painted you as sloppy, inattentive, a drain on team morale. I listened longer than I should have. That is my fault. She nodded toward the screens. Once I realized his data was tainted, I went back to the raw logs. Your work told a different story. Clean fixes, thoughtful commits, long, steady sessions, no drama, just solutions. He thought of the quiet midnights he had spent in windowless rooms, earphones in, working through error messages while the rest of the city slept. No one had stood over his shoulder then. No one had taken notes. Misery had company now. I needed to know who you were without his commentary, she said. Not just as an engineer, as a person. Because whoever did this, she pointed at the secured footage, and the trail of numbers is not going to stop for polite confrontation. I need people around me who make hard choices for the right reasons. He remembered standing up in the boardroom, the scrape of his chair, the way every head had turned, the hollow feeling in his chest as he said words that would break his own life to keep others intact. You fired me to see what I would do, he said. Yes, she said. You humiliated me in front of everyone I work with. They did the humiliating, she said. I watched them not stand up. That was useful data, too. He wanted to be angry. Part of him was. It glowed in his chest, a clean, sharp heat. Another part understood in a way that only someone who had once stared at datasets could understand. When you did not trust the metadata, you went back to the source. In this case, that meant people. He looked up at Oraclenet's shifting lattice of light above the console. Nodes brightened and dimmed in response to silent inputs. For the first time since stepping off the elevator, he noticed that the pattern felt slightly off. There was a stutter in one of the paths, a tiny irregularity that did not match the rest. They got to it, he said quietly. They tried, Cassandra said. They did some damage at the edges. The core self-corrected more than our models predicted, which is both reassuring and troubling. Noah turned back to her. You have your saboteur, he said. You know I am not him. So, what do you want from me now? Cassandra rested her hand lightly on the edge of the console. On her left wrist, the faint indentation of a watch tan line marked skin that had rarely seen daylight without glass between it and the sky. I want to stop the bleeding, she said, and I want help doing it from someone whose instincts run toward protecting people instead of selling them. Her eyes held his steady and unblinking. You have already proven you are willing to lose your place to keep others standing, she said. I need that kind of anchor in this room. The word anchor sat between them, heavy and unexpected. Noah glanced at the box by his feet. Lily's drawing peeked out from under the folded hoodie, a triangle of bright color in a world of gray and blue light. He did not answer yet. He was still cataloging what he had lost in the last few hours and what exactly he was being invited into now. The door behind them opened with a soft hiss. Noah turned. 2 security officers stepped into the room. They wore the same dark uniforms as Adler, but their posture was different, firmer. One of them had a tablet in his hand. The other had his keys already unclipped from his belt. Between them walked Blake Mercer. He did not have his usual easy stride. His shoulders were slightly hunched, as if he was not sure how much space he was allowed to take up anymore. The hood from the video was gone. He wore a crisp shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, the kind of casual polish he favored on big meeting days. His eyes flicked around the room, took in the screens, the central console, the pulsing network overhead. Then they landed on Noah. For a heartbeat, Blake looked genuinely confused to see him there. Confusion shifted quickly into calculation. What is this, he asked. Cassandra, what is going on? Cassandra did not move away from the console. She stood with one hand still resting on its edge, the other at her side. The glow from the screens painted a cool sheen along the line of her jaw. You are familiar with this room, she said. You have been here before. Something passed over Blake's face. It could have been a flinch. It could have been annoyance. I come up for strategy syncs from time to time, he said. You know that. Why did your people pull me out of a meeting? She nodded toward the main display. Because we are putting some strategies into perspective, she said. The security officer with the tablet brought it to her. She tapped the screen once. The wall display shifted again. The paused image of Blake in the server room filled the surface. Blake went very still. The silence in the lab thickened. Even the hum of the servers seemed to pull back a little. That is not, he began. The version of him on the screen looked up at the camera just as Noah had seen before. The resolution was not high, but the match was undeniable. The curve of his cheek, the line of his nose, the way he held his shoulders when he thought no one important was watching. Security footage from the 21st floor, Cassandra said. 2 nights ago, 1:13 in the morning. Access obtained using Rhea's badge and account. Blake pulled his gaze away from the display. He focused on her with the intensity he usually reserved for board members and top clients. Someone framed me, he said. This proves nothing, except that whoever edited this knows what you expect to see. Cassandra did not look at him. She gestured. The display split. On one side, the video remained frozen. On the other, the log view appeared again. Lines of text, usernames, IP addresses. The system logs are tagged with Rhea's credentials, she said. The traffic path, however, routes through an external connection that traces back to your apartment. That is not possible, Blake said. Anyone could spoof an IP. You know that. You have read the same papers I have. Someone is using my address to throw you off. Probably the same genius who picked Noah to be the fall guy. He said Noah's name like an afterthought, a footnote. The security officer with the tablet flicked his thumb across the screen. A new window appeared. This one showed a different interface. Browser history, email headers, familiar corporate fonts. In the top corner, Blake's Novodyne email address. On the opposite side, addresses from HelioCore Labs. Cassandra scrolled through the most recent message. Her voice stayed level when she spoke, but Noah heard something brittle in it. You initiated contact 6 months ago, she said. It started with a conference follow-up, moved into discussions about shared interests, then access, then influence, then compensation. That is taken out of context, Blake said. His voice sharpened. We explore partnerships all the time. You tell us to. We are supposed to look for leverage for alliances. The bottom of the thread showed the message Noah had seen earlier. The words hung starkly against the pale background. Once Oraclenet is compromised, Cassandra highlighted the line without comment. Context, she said, is not helping you here. Blake dragged a hand down his face. His fingers trembled once as they passed his mouth. It might have been anger. It might have been fear. He turned toward Noah, eyes narrowing. You showed her this, he said. You have been digging through my stuff since you walked out of that room. No, Noah said. I did not show her anything. Then how does she have it? Blake demanded. He looked between them, as if willing someone to offer him an escape hatch. We do not monitor personal devices like this unless someone gives us a reason. You gave us several, Cassandra said. Your access patterns. Your late-night sessions using other people's credentials. Your sudden interest in export controls. Blake let out a short, harsh laugh. You are going to take his word over mine, he said. A guy who just admitted to taking down our biggest client. A guy you fired in front of everyone. I am taking the data over your word, she said. You have been feeding me opinions. I decided to look at the facts. The muscles in Blake's jaw flexed. His eyes darted back to the screen to his own frozen face under the harsh light of the server room camera. This is a witch hunt, he said. You need a villain. The stock takes a hit. You pull out a traitor. You look like the hero who saved the company from the inside. I do not need to look like anything, Cassandra said. I need to keep this place alive. You made that harder. You think anyone will believe this? Blake asked. After everything I have done for Novodyne, the clients I have brought in, the deals I have closed, half the board sits in meetings because I talked them into staying with us when they got nervous. They know my worth. Cassandra's expression did not change. They will see the same logs I have, she said. They will see the same footage. They will weigh that against your charm. Blake's gaze shifted again to Noah, and this time there was no confusion in it at all, only accusation. You set me up, he said. No, Noah said.
Sin be simisirim spirit.
Cleaned up after you. There is a difference. You could have said my name upstairs, Blake shot back. You did not. You took it all on yourself. What changed? I saw the video, Noah said. That changed. The security officer, who had not spoken yet, stepped forward. His hand hovered near the handcuffs on his belt, close enough to make the possibility obvious. Blake Mercer, he said, reading from the tablet, you are being removed from the premises pending further legal action. Your access has been revoked. You are to surrender your badge and any company property on your person. This is not over, Blake snapped. He pulled his badge from his belt and threw it. It skidded across the smooth console surface and collided with the base of a monitor, spinning once before coming to a stop. You hear me, Cassandra, he said. You will regret making an enemy out of me. I know things that make this look like a joke. You knew things, Cassandra said. Now you are going to have to explain them to people who carry different kinds of badges. The guard reached for Blake's arm. Blake jerked away and took one step toward Noah. This was my account, he said, voice low and raw. My team. My future. You had no right to stand up in that room and make a choice for all of us. You think they will thank you now? Noah did not back up. There was nowhere to go. The console pressed against his hip. The hoodie under his arm warmed with his grip. I did not do it for thanks, he said. Blake stared at him for a long second. Everything Noah thought he knew about the man stacked up in that look and then scattered. Pathetic, Blake said finally. The word landed flat with less force than he probably intended. The guard took his arm again. This time, Blake did not fight. He let himself be turned toward the door. As they walked out, his voice floated back inside. "I will sue all of you," he said. "You think the press will not eat up a story like this?" The doors closed. The echo of his steps faded down the hall. For a moment, the only sound in the lab was the steady thrum of cooling systems. Noah let out a breath he had not realized he had been holding. It left him shaky. He leaned back against the console and set the hoodie and the box on the floor again. His shoulders ached. His hands felt too light without the constant weight. Cassandra tapped a control on the console. The screen cleared the video and logs. In their place, a different window opened. This one showed a familiar internal interface, one he had used in another lifetime when a manager somewhere had needed a promotion request justified. At the top of the document, his own name stared back at him. Reyes Noah A. Below it, a form. Recommendation for advancement. 3 years old. Submitted by his original supervisor, a man who had left the company 2 years ago to teach at a community college. The comments section was full of phrases Noah had never seen. Exceptionally strong systems intuition. Demonstrates leadership in crisis scenarios. Ready to architect and lead teams, not just execute. Noah felt his throat tighten. "I did not know this existed," he said. "You never saw it," Cassandra said, "because it never reached my desk." She scrolled to the bottom of the form. A red stamp sat over the submit button in the digital archive. Denied. In the comments next to it, another note, this one from Blake. Not a good fit for leadership. Struggles with communication. Better kept in support functions. Cassandra clicked through to other files. Performance reviews that had been drafted and then replaced. Project reports where his contributions appeared in initial versions then vanished under edits. Mason stole your career and original story becomes here. Blake systematically blocked advancement. He was threatened by you, Cassandra said quietly. So, he buried you. He kept you in the basement of the org chart and used your work to bolster his own. Noah thought of 4 years of midnight tickets, of watching newer hires leapfrog him on the org chart, of wondering if grief had broken more than his personal life, if it had dulled something inside his work he could not identify. The realization that it had not been all in his head was dizzying. It felt like relief and rage wrapped around each other. "I kept thinking I had done this to myself," he said, "that I missed some step everyone else knew, that I had wasted whatever chance I had." "You gave more than you got back," Cassandra said. Blake made sure of that. He stared at the screen until the words blurred. He turned away. His gaze landed on Oraclenet's shifting structure above them again. The subtle hitch in its pattern drew his attention back in. "So, what now?" he said. "For me. You proved your point. You tore his mask off. You still fired me in front of everyone." "I did," she said, "which is why I am going to fix that as publicly as I broke it." She reached into the inner pocket of her jacket and pulled something out. A small plastic card lay between her fingers, dangling from a dark blue lanyard. She held it out to him. He did not take it right away. "Look at it," she said. He reached out and took the badge. His own face stared back from the photograph, slightly washed out under the fluorescent light of the ID station. The name beneath it was the same, Noah Reyes. It was the line under that that made his fingers go numb. Lead Systems Architect Oraclenet. He read it twice as if the words might change. "This is some kind of joke," he said. "I do not make this kind of joke," Cassandra said. "You fired me," he said. "Then I watched you choose everyone else over yourself," she said. "I watched you keep your mouth shut when you could have thrown your manager under the bus to save your skin. I watched you put a jacket ahead of protocol because you know what real risk looks like." He shook his head once, still staring at the badge. "I am a single dad who fixes servers at night," he said. "I am not whatever this is. You are a systems thinker who has been working under people who were afraid of being outshone," she said. "You are someone whose first instinct in a crisis is to shield, not hoard. I can teach architecture patterns. I can teach advanced model theory. I cannot teach that." She nodded toward the screens. "Oraclenet is not just code," she said. "It is decisions layered on decisions. It will never be perfect. Neither will we. I need someone in here who knows what it feels like to stand on the edge of losing everything and still pick the option that keeps other people standing. Triple your current salary," she had said earlier. "Full medical coverage for him and Lily. Flexible hours. The package includes a pay adjustment," she said now, as if reading his thoughts. "You would not have to count every grocery run in advance. Lily's inhalers will not be a line item that makes the month tight." He closed his hand around the badge. The edges bit into his palm. How do you know her name? He asked. I know the names of the people I want to trust, she said. I know you leave at 3:15 twice a week to pick her up. I know you log back in at 9 after she is asleep. I know she was in the building last Thursday eating crackers at your desk. He pictured Lily Legs swinging crumbs on his keyboard. He had wiped them away and laughed. For the first time, he wondered if someone had watched that scene on a camera feed and noted it down under a column titled Human. I am offering you a chance to climb out of the basement they put you in, Cassandra said, to stand where the damage is being done and help fix it. Noah looked from the badge to Oraclenet and back again. The lattice of light above them flickered. One of the stutters he had seen earlier smoothed out, then appeared again somewhere else like a heartbeat trying to find a steady rhythm. His life had been moving in small circles for so long. Apartment to office, office to school, school to supermarket, back home. He had learned to measure success in quiet days. Now the circle had cracked, and through it he could see a room most people in the building would never set foot in. He clipped the badge to the front of his shirt. The plastic felt heavier than it should have. When does this start? He asked. Cassandra's mouth curved not into a broad smile, but into the smallest shift away from the hard line it usually held. It has already started, she said, but tomorrow everyone else will find out. The auditorium smelled like coffee and new carpet. Rows of black chairs stepped up from the stage, filling the room with a slow murmur of voices and the occasional nervous laugh. The overhead lights were bright, but not harsh, aimed mostly at the wide wooden stage at the front. A giant Novodyne logo glowed faintly on the wall behind it, set into a long screen that was currently black. Behind the curtain at stage left, Noah stood with his back against the painted cinder block wall, hands in his pockets. The badge on his chest felt heavier now that he knew what it said. He could feel its edge press lightly through the fabric of his shirt each time he drew a breath. He watched people filter in through a narrow gap in the curtain. Engineers in hoodies and t-shirts, managers in shirts and blazers, HR staff with tablets in hand. The DevOps engineer from his floor sat near the middle shoulders tense. Mia picked a seat on the aisle mug in both hands, even though they had all been told not to bring drinks inside. The intern with the faded hoodie slid into a seat in the back row and immediately slouched down as if hoping the chair would swallow him. Kara from HR stood near the side door, talking quietly with someone from legal. Adler, the security guard who had escorted Noah out the day before, took a post near the exit with two colleagues in similar uniforms. Noah caught a glimpse of his old desk neighbor slipping into a seat. The man's eyes darted toward the stage, and then away, already uneasy about something he had not seen yet. Crowd is full, a voice said behind him. He turned. Cassandra stood near the edge of the curtain, looking out at the room with a calm he did not share. She wore a dark dress instead of a suit today, the kind of thing that read as formal without looking stiff. A small wireless microphone clipped near her collarbone. You sure about this? Noah asked. Yes, she said. I am not, he said. One corner of her mouth moved. That is normal, she said. If you were excited about walking out there, I would be more worried. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his badge. They looked at me like I was contagious yesterday, he said. I do not think a day is long enough for anyone to forget that. They are not going to forget, she said. That is the point. She checked the watch on her wrist, then tilted her head toward the stage. 2 minutes, she said. You can still change your mind about joining me out there. He thought of Lily's drawing in the box upstairs. The kite and the sun and the block letters declaring faith in a man who had just lost his job and then gained one he did not fully understand yet. I will come out when you call, he said. She nodded once as if she had expected that answer all along. A stagehand gave her the signal. The house lights dimmed slightly. The murmur in the room dipped, then quieted. Cassandra stepped out into the light. The shift was immediate. Conversations died mid-sentence. Hundreds of faces turned toward her. The screen behind her flickered and then showed nothing but the Novodyne logo, small and pale. She stopped at the center of the stage and let the silence settle before she spoke. Good morning, she said. Her amplified voice filled the room without strain. Thank you for coming on short notice. I know everyone has a lot to do. Tickets do not close themselves, and sprint boards never sleep. There was a faint ripple of tension at the attempt at humor. No one quite laughed. Cassandra did not push it. Yesterday she said Novodyne made a mistake. She paused. No, she corrected. I made a mistake. Eyes in the crowd shifted. People straightened. Noah could almost feel the thought passing through them in waves. It was not often she said that out loud. I stood in a room full of leaders and watched one person accept responsibility for an incident that cost us a major client, she said. I accepted his statement at face value. I terminated his employment in front of witnesses. Then I let the story settle over this building like wet cement. On the left side of the room, someone shifted uncomfortably in their seat. Cassandra looked up at the tiers of chairs, gaze moving slowly. After that meeting, she said our internal investigation team and I continued to work the problem. We dug into logs. We traced access. We reconstructed timelines. We pulled video from racks some of you have never seen. She lifted a hand slightly. On cue, the screen behind her came to life. A still frame appeared. The server room on 21, the narrow aisle, the glow of the terminal, the figure in the hoodie. A murmur ran through the auditorium, soft at first, then louder as people recognized the room. Cassandra spoke over it. This footage is from 2 nights ago, she said. 1:13 in the morning. Access to a secure terminal in our core infrastructure using borrowed credentials. She tapped a small remote in her other hand. The video played. The hooded figure sat at the terminal, fingers flying. The camera angle caught just enough of his face when he glanced up. The murmurs sharpened into something else. Blake, someone whispered, not nearly as quietly as they probably intended. On the backstage monitor, Noah watched the realization ripple through the crowd. People leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. A manager in the third row raised a hand to his mouth. The video froze again. Many of you worked under or alongside Blake Mercer, Cassandra said. He led teams. He closed deals. He presented our work to people with power. He also sold the heart of that work to a competitor. The screen split. Logs appeared next to the video, email, the familiar corporate interface filled with unfamiliar words. We have evidence of repeated access to protected systems using other people's accounts, she said. Of guidance given to an external organization interested in destabilizing our flagship project. Of an explicit offer break or a Clenet shake investor confidence and receive title and equity elsewhere in return. She did not dramatize the details. She did not need to. The facts were loud enough. On stage, she lowered her hand. The screen dimmed, though Blake's frozen face lingered a second longer before fading. Blake Mercer has been removed from the building, she said. Law enforcement has been notified. Federal agencies are already involved. They will handle their part. Noah saw a few people in the audience exchange wide-eyed looks. Some seemed stunned. Some seemed almost relieved. A tension they had not named before was suddenly visible. What I am here to handle, Cassandra continued, is ours. She let her gaze travel the room again. Yesterday in that boardroom, the wrong person was blamed, she said. The wrong person was punished. The wrong person walked out carrying a box of his life while the real saboteur smiled in the corner. She let the silence that followed carry the weight of that. In that room, I asked who was responsible, she said. Only one person stood up. She turned her head slightly toward the side of the stage where Noah waited. Noah Reyes, she said, would you join me out here, please? For a second, Noah's legs forgot how to work. Then muscle memory took over. He stepped out from behind the curtain into heat and light. The stage felt bigger from this side. The rows of faces rose in front of him like waves. He could not make out individuals at first, just a field of eyes and shadows. The lights burned against his skin. He blinked until shapes resolved. He saw Mia near the aisle, hands locked around her mug. She stared at him, tears brightening the rims of her eyes. The DevOps engineer's mouth was tight, his shoulders straight. The intern in the back row sat upright now, hoodie pushed back, eyes wide. People he barely knew watched him, as if seeing him for the first time. Others looked down at their laps, shame etched into the lines of their faces. Noah's heart thudded in his chest. He stopped beside Cassandra just far enough from the podium that he was clearly intended to be part of the scene and not an accident. This is the man who said my name yesterday, Cassandra said. She did not put a hand on his shoulder. She did not need to. The gesture was in her choice to stand beside him, not in front of him. He is the one who claimed responsibility for a system crash he did not cause, she said. At the time, I accepted that claim. I did not accept it because the data supported it. I accepted it because it was convenient. That was my failure. She turned just enough that she was looking at Noah as she spoke. I have since seen the logs I should have trusted first, she said. They clear him of direct involvement. They also show someone else using his credentials to sabotage our work and make him a scapegoat. She faced the audience again. Noah did not just walk into that room and say it was his fault, she said. He looked around at the people he worked with. He knew what a wide cut would do to them. He knew whose kids had asthma and whose parents were sick and who had just signed a mortgage. He weighed that against his own life and stepped forward. A rustle went through the seats. The mention of asthma turned a few heads left and right, as if trying to remember who had shared that detail. He made that choice alone, Cassandra said. None of you asked him to. None of you stopped him. You let him walk out carrying your relief for you." Her words did not rise in volume, but they grew sharper. Several people lowered their eyes. A manager Noah recognized from another floor shifted in his seat, like the chair had suddenly become uncomfortable. "I am not saying this to scold you," Cassandra said. "I am saying it because truth has more than one layer. Yesterday you saw a man fired. Today you see why that happened. You need both to understand what comes next in this building." She turned back to Noah. The entire room turned with her. In light of the evidence, she said clear and formal, "I am reversing your termination." The sentence landed inside him with a strange weight. He had known it was coming. It still felt unreal. She took one small step closer, so that if he looked down, he could see the edge of her shoe near his. "That is not enough," she said. "You were not just wrongly blamed for someone else's actions. You were also held back for years from the work you should have been doing, buried under someone who benefited from your invisibility." She held out her hand. This time, she did not ask him to take anything from her. She showed the audience what he already had. Light caught the plastic of the badge clipped to his shirt, making the letters shine. "This is our new lead systems architect for Auraclinet," she said. "Effective immediately. He has my full trust and authority." The words echoed through the auditorium, amplified and then multiplied by whispers. Lead systems architect. Somewhere in the back, a single pair of hands started clapping. The sound was small and lonely at first. Another joined, then another. The applause grew uneven and halting. Some people joined late. A few did not clap at all, their hands remaining on their laps, faces unreadable. Mia clapped so hard her mug rattled against the armrest. The intern's hands moved slowly at first, then faster, as if he had decided something about the man on stage he wanted to support. Adler by the exit brought his fingers together in a quiet rhythm. Kara from HR wiped at the corner of her eye before she realized what she was doing. Noah stood very still. The sound washed over him and bounced off the high ceiling. It did not feel like a celebration. It felt like something heavier, a collective acknowledgement dragging itself into the light. Cassandra waited until the noise settled to a murmur again. "You may be wondering why someone in his position is the right person to stand between this company and further damage," she said. "You might think we should choose the most celebrated, the loudest voice in the room, the person who has already been in the spotlight." She glanced meaningfully at the now dark screen where Blake's face had recently been. "I have had enough loud voices for a while," she said. "I am choosing someone whose first instinct when the ground disappeared was not to grab for the nearest lifeline, but to look around and see who else might fall." She looked up at the audience once more. "If you work on Auraclinet, if your models and code feed into that lattice, you will be working with him," she said. "If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you see pressure to cut corners, you go to him or to me." She stepped away from the podium then and turned fully toward Noah. Her hand came up open between them. Not a handshake for a contract, not the stiff gesture of a boss in front of a camera, something simpler. "Come with me," she said, voice lowered so that only the first few rows and the microphones picked it up. He looked at her hand. He looked at the rows of faces, at the people who had watched him fall and now watched him in this other place. He thought of Lily small and certain at their kitchen table, pressing a paper kite into his hand. He reached out and took Cassandra's hand. The applause swelled again, fuller this time. Not unanimous, but enough to fill the space with sound. Together, they walked across the stage away from the podium toward the side exit. The lights followed them for a few steps, then shifted back to the center of the stage as the screen behind them faded to the Novodyne logo once more. At the edge of the curtain just before they stepped out of sight, Noah glanced back over his shoulder for a moment. Rows of people sat there, some standing now, some still in their seats, all turned toward the place where he had been standing a few seconds before. Then the curtain blocked his view, and he was in the dim backstage again, the noise of the auditorium muffled, but still present like distant surf. Backstage, the sound of applause faded into a dull roar, and then into a low rumble as people began to file out. The curtain trembled slightly with the movement. Noah let go of Cassandra's hand. His palms still felt the pressure of her grip, the dryness of her skin, the faint tremor that might have been his or hers. "That was a lot of eyes," he said. "Comes with the job," she said. He leaned a shoulder against the cool wall, letting his breath even out. The badge on his chest was still there. No one had taken it away between the side of the stage and this patch of shadow. That counted for something. "You did well," Cassandra said. "I tried not to pass out," he said. "That seemed like a good baseline." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "I have executives who cannot manage that in smaller rooms," she said. A staffer hurried by with a coil of cable over one shoulder, nearly tripping over a wedge of lighting equipment. Someone else called out stage directions for clearing the podium. The backstage area smelled faintly of dust and old paint. Cassandra checked that her microphone was off, then unclipped it and handed it to a waiting technician. "You are free to go," she told Noah. "If you want to disappear into your office for a while, no one will blame you." He thought about the open-plan floor, about the desks, and the eyes, and the conversations that would stop mid-sentence when he walked by. He thought about the questions people would want to ask, and the ones they would be too ashamed to voice. "Not yet," he said. "I should probably not go straight from that to debugging logs." "Good instinct," Cassandra said. She glanced toward the exit, then back at him. "Come with me," she said. He huffed a small breath. "I am starting to recognize that as a theme." "It works," she said. They left the stage area through a side hallway that led away from the crowd. The noise of the auditorium fell behind them, replaced by the quieter sounds of the building in its usual mode. Elevators, footsteps, the soft chime of messages arriving on someone else's phone. They rode a service elevator this time. It was narrower with scuffed metal walls and a faint smell of cardboard and cleaning supplies. Cassandra pressed a small unmarked button near the top of the panel. Noah watched the numbers climb. 20, 30, 40. His ears popped slightly around 50. When the doors opened, a rush of colder air met them. They stepped out onto the roof. Seattle stretched in every direction, lit in scattered dots and lines. The harbor was a darker patch beyond the highway boats, marked only by a few bright points on the water. The wind was stronger here, carrying the tang of salt and rain and exhaust. It tugged at Noah's shirt and pushed against his chest. Floodlights along the edges of the roof cast wide pools of pale illumination, but most of the space lay in soft shadow. Ventilation units hummed. A red light blinked slowly on a higher antenna, a warning to aircraft that looked almost lazy. Noah walked toward the low barrier at the edge and stopped a safe distance from it. He rested his hands on the cold metal rail and looked down. Cars moved in tiny streams below their headlights, sliding between streetlights and traffic signals. People hurried along the sidewalks under umbrellas, small shapes in a city that did not know or care what had just happened in the auditorium. "It looks smaller from up here," he said. "It always does," Cassandra said. She came to stand beside him, not quite touching the rail. The wind caught at the edges of her dress, pressed the fabric against her legs. Strands of hair escaped from her twist and blew across her cheek. She did not reach up to tuck them back. "Why here?" he asked. "It is quiet," she said. "And it is hard to pretend things are abstract when you can see how far you can fall." He glanced at her. The line sounded like something she had said before, maybe to herself. She looked out over the city eyes, tracing the path of a helicopter cutting across the skyline, its blinking lights pulsing through thin cloud. "You asked me earlier why I risked this on you," she said. He nodded. "I could have fixed the paperwork in silence," she went on. "Cleared your record, moved you quietly into a slightly better role. Let Blake leave as an unfortunate but contained incident. The company would have kept going. The markets might have even liked the story. Clean crisis management. Strong leadership. Instead, Noah said you dragged all of it into the light and handed me a title that makes half this building uncomfortable." "Yes," she said. "Why?" he asked. The wind shifted, bringing a fine mist with it. It dotted his glasses. He took them off, wiped them on the hem of his shirt, and put them back on. The city returned to its sharp edges. 5 years ago, Cassandra said I sat on this roof the night we signed our first real contract. Her voice changed. It lost some of the steel she used downstairs and picked up something rougher. "It was raining then too," she said. "Different storm. Same city. I had not slept in 3 days. We had nearly run out of money twice that month. I had not seen my family in weeks. I remember standing right where you are standing, looking down and thinking I was balanced on the only line that mattered. Success on one side, failure on the other, nothing in between." She drew in a breath and let it out slowly. "I built Novodyne from that line," she said. "I chose the meetings over the birthdays, the late nights, over the dinners, the deals over the conversations. Every time I put the company first, someone patted me on the back and told me that is what leadership looks like." She turned her head to look at him. "You know what happens when you do that long enough?" she asked. "You forget why you started," Noah said. Her mouth twitched, as if she had not expected him to answer correctly. "Yes," she said. "You also forget what people look like when you are not using them to balance a spreadsheet." A gull drifted by on the wind wings, tipped, searching for something only it could see. "I surrounded myself with people who knew how to talk numbers," she said, "who knew how to work a room full of investors. People like Blake. They told me the right things. They told me they would carry the weight. They just did not tell me what they planned to carry it into. She shifted her gaze back to the city. When you stood up in that boardroom, you did not tell me what I wanted to hear, she said. You gave me a problem. If I took your admission at face value, I could cut you out and expect the rest of the system to heal around the missing piece. But the way you did it interfered with the story I had been telling myself about this place. How he asked. You did not ask for anything, she said. No severance buffer, no reference letter, no promise to be reconsidered. You just made a calculation about who could survive what. It was clumsy. It was based on partial information. It was also the first honest thing I had seen in that room in a while. Honest. He rolled the word around in his head. It did not feel like a compliment. It felt like a diagnosis. I did not feel honest, he said. I was lying. To you. To everyone. You lied about the technical fault, she said. You were very clear about why you were doing it. When I asked you later in the elevator, you did not give me the easy answers. You did not try to rewrite what happened to make yourself look better. You did not break under pressure when a rule at the front desk kept you from a piece of your kid's life you needed. He thought of Harper's face at the security counter, of his own hands gripping the edge of the box. I was not polite, he said. I do not hire people to be polite, she said. I hire them to know what matters. For a while they stood without speaking. The wind pressed against them. Clouds moved above a darker gray against the lighter sky as the last of the daytime light faded. I am not special, Noah said quietly. I am just trying to keep a roof over my kid's head and air in her lungs. That is it. That is the whole grand plan. Most people would have used that as a reason to protect themselves first, Cassandra said. That is what Blake did. He used his future as justification for burning everything around him. You used yours as a reason to shield strangers from a decision you thought I would make. He lifted one hand from the rail and looked at his fingers. They were rougher than he remembered from 10 years ago, a few small scars from careless encounters with sharp metal and hot boards. The nails were short and clean. They did not look like the fingers of someone who shaped anything vast. They looked like the fingers of a person who fixed things. I felt broken yesterday, he said, when I walked out with that box. Like there was a crack running down the middle of me, like I was watching my life through a window I could not open. Broken is not useless, Cassandra said. Sometimes the cracks are where the light leaks in. He made a small sound that could have been a laugh. You read that on a poster somewhere, he asked. On a slip of paper and a fortune cookie at 2 a.m, after a terrible meeting, she said. It annoyed me. Then it stayed in my head. She turned, leaning her hips against the rail so she faced him. Her eyes had lost some of their polished distance. He saw tiredness there now, and something that looked a lot like worry. I do not need you to be flawless, Reyes, she said. I do not need a myth. I have plenty of those already. I need someone who knows what it feels like when the world narrows to a hospital room and a rent payment and a job that might not last the week and still chooses not to turn into Blake. That is a low bar, he said. It is higher than you think, she said. A plane passed overhead, its lights blinking. The sound reached them a second behind the movement. I do not know if I can do this, he said. You already are, she said. He shook his head. I am good at finding bugs, he said. I am good at making things work when they probably should not. I have not led a team since before Lily was born. I am not sure I remember how to talk to people without a screen between us. We will figure that out, she said. You are not going to do it alone. I am not handing you the keys and walking away. He looked at her, at the sharp line of her profile against the sky, at the way the wind tugged at her hair and brought a faint color to her cheeks. What about you? He asked. Who keeps you from turning into Blake? She blinked, surprised by the question. I like to think I do, she said. On good days. On bad days, I rely on the fact that I still feel sick when I realize how close I came to believing his version of the truth over the data. That is not the same as having someone to tell you when you are running too fast toward a cliff, he said. She looked back at the city. Maybe not, she said. The wind picked up. A few drops of rain hit the railing, darkening the metal in scattered spots. The storm was not strong yet, just a reminder. I am offering you this because you stood up when it cost you, she said. Not because you were perfect, not because the headline looks good. You stepped forward when everyone else stayed seated. That matters to me. He thought again of Lily's certainty at the kitchen table, of the way she had pressed the crayon so hard into the paper that the letters had nearly torn it. My dad can fix anything. He had not believed her when she said it. Not really. Not until he realized that fixing did not always look like swapping out a bad part. Sometimes it looked like standing in a room and saying 3 words no one wanted to say. He looked at Cassandra. What do you need from me right now, he asked. Right now, she said, I need you to take one more breath up here, where the noise is softer. Then I need you to go home and pick up your daughter and let her talk your ear off. Tomorrow we start cleaning up what Blake almost did to this company. The word home settled into him in a way that made his chest ache. He nodded. They stood together for another minute, silent, watching the city. The rain came a little harder, a fine, steady spray that clung to their clothes and hair. Neither of them moved to go inside. Eventually, Cassandra pushed off the rail. Come on, she said. You will freeze up here. I have been colder, he said. I know, she said. They walked back toward the door, their footsteps muffled on the roof. At the threshold, Noah glanced back one last time at the view. The lights, the wet rooftops, the streets that wound back toward a small apartment where a red hoodie would be thrown over a chair and a paper kite would rest on a refrigerator door. He followed Cassandra inside. The door closed behind them with a solid click, shutting out the wind. Morning came with rain. It pattered against the bedroom window in a steady rhythm, soft but insistent, like fingers drumming on glass. The light that leaked around the blinds was gray and thin. Somewhere in the apartment, a radiator clicked and groaned as it tried to remember how to be warm. Noah lay awake for a moment, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling. His body felt heavy in that way that meant he had slept, but his mind had kept working long after his eyes closed. He could still see the lattice of auriculanet behind his eyelids. He could still hear the echo of applause in the auditorium, the muffled roar of the city from the roof. A soft cough came from the small bedroom down the hall. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and sat for a second, toes on cold floorboards, feeling the familiar tug in his chest. When he remembered that there used to be another warm body in this bed, he pushed the thought away gently, rather than fighting it. Some ghosts did not leave. You just learned to walk around them. The hallway was dim. A nightlight glowed near an outlet, throwing a small circle of yellow onto the wall, where Lily had taped a row of stickers. Stars and planets. A crooked rocket. He pushed her door open with his knuckles. Lily lay sprawled across her bed, hair a dark tangle on the pillow, one arm flung over her head. The covers had twisted around her legs. Her mouth was half open, lips slightly parted in sleep. The stuffed bear Maria had bought at a gas station years ago was tucked under her side. Her chest rose and fell with a wheeze that was more sound than danger, the kind of noise that would have sent him into a panic when she was 3. Now he listened and counted and heard the steady rhythm underneath. He bent and brushed a hand over her hair. Hey, Bug, he murmured. Time to get up. She squinted, one eye open. 5 more minutes, she said, voice thick. 5 more minutes turns into missing breakfast, he said. And you know how you get when you have to do math on an empty stomach. She made a face, then rolled onto her back. Math is evil, she said. Math buys cereal, he said. Respect math. Her lips twitched. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes with the heels of her hands. He could see the outline of her small shoulders through the worn cotton of her sleep shirt. He opened her closet and pulled out jeans and a clean t-shirt, laying them on the end of the bed. You need your hoodie today, he said. It is cold. She frowned. The red one? Yeah. I thought it was at your work, she said. You said yesterday it was at your work. It was, he said. He walked over to the chair in the corner and picked up the hoodie. He had draped it there the night before, right after they came home. The fabric had dried by then. It still smelled faintly of server room air and something sharper from the elevator, but under that the familiar mix of her shampoo and crayons. He held it up. Problem solved, he said. Her face lit up. She reached for it with both hands. You got it back, she said. Had help, he said. Put it on. She tugged it over her head. The hood settled around her face, ears disappearing. She smoothed the front with her hands, fingers checking the pocket automatically. They closed around the inhaler. She looked up at him. You remembered, she said. I told you I would, he said. She hopped down from the bed. Do you still work there? She asked abruptly. He hesitated, toothbrush and lunch packing, and 100 other practical tasks suddenly pushed aside by the weight of the question. In a way, he said, my job changed. Did you get fired? She asked. The word sounded strange and heavy in her small mouth. I did, he said. He did not see the point of pretending. Then I got hired again. Different job. Same building. She studied his face like she did when she tried to decide if he was joking. Is your new job better? She asked. It is bigger, he said. More responsibility. Less crawling under desks. More telling computers what to do from farther away. That sounds cool, she said. Do you still get to wear your badge? He tapped the plastic clipped to the front of his faded t-shirt. He had not taken it off when he got home. When he showered, he had hung it carefully on the hook by the door, then put it back on afterward without thinking. Yeah, he said, I get to keep this. She leaned in to look at it, nose almost touching the photo. You look weird in that picture, she said. I had to wake up early, he said. There was a camera involved. It did not go well. She giggled. In the small kitchen, the smell of coffee and toast slowly overpowered the damp scent of rain that drifted in through the slightly open window. The kettle hissed. The toaster clicked. Noah moved through the narrow space on automatic, dropping bread into slots, cracking eggs into a pan, stirring everything with a rhythm his hands knew. Lily sat at the wobbly table by the window, crayons spread out in a messy halo around a fresh sheet of paper. "What are you drawing this time?" he asked. "A kite," she said. "Another one," he said. "You have a whole gallery of kites already." "This one is different," she said. He poured coffee into his chipped mug and carried 2 plates to the table. Scrambled eggs, toast, a slice of banana for each of them. He set Lily's plate down near her elbow, careful not to bump the crayons. On the page, a familiar shape was taking form. A diamond with a tail of little squares. A sky above it. A sun in the corner. He sat down and took a sip of coffee. It was too hot and too bitter. He welcomed the sting. "How is it different?" he asked. She chose a blue crayon and pressed it hard against the paper to fill in the sky. "Last time it was just me and you," she said. "And the kite. And the sun. And the hearts on the tail," he said. "And the hearts," she agreed. "This time," she said, picking up a gray crayon, "there is a building." She drew a rectangle under the kite taller than it was wide. Windows appeared in uneven rows. She filled them in with lighter gray. "That is us," he asked. "Living in a big office tower now." She shook her head. "This is your work building," she said. "So, the kite knows where to find you." He stared at the drawing for a second. The building was too big to be their apartment. Too straight, too many windows. The kite hovered above it, tail blowing to one side as if caught in a wind no one else could see. She added a small stick figure at the bottom, with a circle for a head and lines for arms. It held something in one hand. "Who is that?" Noah asked. "You," she said, holding coffee. He laughed. "Of course." She drew a smaller figure next to the first one. This one had a triangle dress and more hair. "And that?" he asked. "Her," Lily said. "Her who he said," the lady Lily said. "From your work, the one who helped you get my hoodie." He blinked. "I did not tell you about her," he said. "You said someone helped," she said. "And you said she was the boss. I put her in the picture." He tried to see Cassandra as Lily did. Not the CEO in a charcoal suit standing under fluorescent lights, but a stick figure in a dress at the base of a building, coffee in hand, looking up at a kite. She needs more hair, Lily decided, and added another curved line. Noah chewed his toast and watched her fill in the rest. She gave the sun a smiling face and added a few birds in lopsided V-shapes near the top of the page. The kite string connected the diamond in the sky to his stick figure hand. "You really like kites," he said. "They go where the wind goes," she said, "but they do not get lost. Someone is holding the string." The way she said it made something shift inside his chest. He finished his coffee. The clock over the stove ticked louder as the time for school crept closer. "Eat your eggs," he said. "You cannot live on art alone." She looked at the plate as if seeing it for the first time, then scooped up a forkful. "Will you pick me up today?" she asked around a mouthful. "Yes," he said. "Not late," she said. "Not late," he said. "If I am late, you can sell my badge." She grinned. After breakfast, they moved through the small apartment in a dance they had practiced for years. Backpacks zipped, shoes laced, teeth brushed, dishes rinsed and left in the sink to soak. The rain outside eased to a fine mist that made the street look like it was wrapped in gauze. At the door, Lily shoved her notebook and the drawing into her backpack. "Careful," he said. "You will wrinkle it." "I am going to show Ms. Alvarez," she said. "She likes it when we draw our families." He hesitated. "Is that what this is?" She looked up at him like he had asked if the sky was up. "Yeah," she said. "Me and you and your work." He swallowed. "Good answer," he said. They walked down 2 flights of stairs that always smelled faintly of someone else's cooking. The air outside slapped his face with cold when he opened the main door. He shifted his jacket tighter around him and made sure Lily's hood was up. The sedan started on the second try. The engine coughed, then settled into a reluctant rumble. The heater blew air that was more cool than warm at first. Lily climbed into the back seat and buckled herself. She pulled a small mirror from her backpack and checked her hair in it like she had seen older kids do, then shoved it back into the bag. As they pulled out into the street, Noah glanced at the rearview mirror. Her eyes met his briefly. She gave a small nod as if confirming that both of them were really there. The city slid past in wet streaks, stoplights reflected in puddles. People hunched into coats at bus stops. A cyclist rolled by in a yellow poncho. "What will you do at school today?" he asked. "We are finishing our planet projects," she said. "I got Saturn. It is the best one. The rings make it fancy." "Very fancy," he said. "And we have reading time," she added. I am on the second book about the cat detective. He solved the cookie mystery, but now there is a missing sock. That sounds serious, he said. It is, she said. He has a magnifying glass. Traffic thickened near the school. Cars lined up along the curb. Parents half-parked, half-waited, hazard lights blinking. The school itself rose up at the end of the block, brick and glass and bright painted doors. He pulled into the drop-off lane. Rain speckled the windshield in small dots, now less urgent than earlier. The wipers squeaked on the glass. Lily unbuckled and scooted forward to the edge of her seat. "You will be there at 3, she asked. 3 on the dot, he said. She looked at him for a moment longer, then leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck from behind the seat. The hug was quick, but tight. "Love you," she said. "Love you more," he said. She rolled her eyes like she always did at that answer, then grabbed her backpack and opened the door. Cold air rushed in. She hopped out, sneakers landing in a shallow puddle. Water splashed up her pant leg. She did not seem to notice. He watched her join the stream of kids heading toward the entrance. The red hoodie bobbed in the crowd. Just before she disappeared through the doors, she turned and lifted a hand, fingers wiggling in a wave. He lifted his in return. On the passenger seat, her drawing lay where she had left it when she changed her mind and decided the backpack was too full. The kite, the building, the 2 stick figures. Noah picked it up and looked at it again, tracing the line of the string with his thumb. Outside, the school bell rang shrill and clear in the damp air. The drawing sat on the passenger seat while the car idled. Noah let the engine warm a little longer than necessary. The heater finally pushed out air that was more warm than cool. It fogged the bottom edge of the windshield in a faint blur. He traced the kite string on the paper once more, then set the drawing carefully on the dashboard, tucking one corner under the inspection sticker so it would not slide. The badge at his chest rested against his sternum with each breath. He pressed his palm over it for a second, feeling the solid shape through the fabric. Then he put the car in gear and pulled away from the curb. The drive to Novodyne was short. It felt longer when his thoughts outran the traffic. The same streets looked different when you had walked out of a building carrying a box and then walked back in with a promotion. By the time he turned onto the avenue that led to the glass tower, the rain had shifted again. Not a downpour, not a mist. Something in between, steady and fine, making the sidewalks shine. The building rose ahead, its mirrored surface reflecting a distorted version of the sky. He pulled into the underground parking this time. Yesterday he had left the car on the street, thinking he might not be there long enough to justify the extra charge. Today the guard at the entrance nodded him through when the system read his plate. It was a small thing. It still felt like crossing a line. He found a spot near the elevator bank and sat for a moment with his hands on the steering wheel. The air in the garage smelled like damp concrete and oil. The distant echo of other engines bounced off the low ceiling. On the dashboard, Lily's drawing glowed faintly in the dim light. He picked it up and slid it into his bag, tucking it between his laptop and a folder of old bills. He shut off the engine, listened to its last shudder, then climbed out. Inside the lobby, the air was warmer, filled with the muted buzz of conversation and the click of shoes on tile. The Novodyne logo gleamed on the wall. The bowl of mints on the security desk looked the same as always. Harper sat behind the desk, shoulders squared. He looked up as Noah approached, eyes flicking instinctively to the badge. For a brief second, something like embarrassment crossed his face. "Morning, Mr. Reyes," he said. The title landed with a different weight than yesterday's sir. Less distance, more formality in a way that did not feel defensive. "Morning," Noah said. Harper cleared his throat. "About yesterday," he said. "We have updated the protocol for personal medical items. That should not have happened the way it did." Noah could have said a lot of things. He could have pointed out the exact phrases Harper had used. He could have remarked on how quickly policies changed when someone higher up decided they did. Instead, he just gave a short nod. "Looks like it did not," he said. "Not anymore." A corner of Harper's mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close. Noah tapped his badge against the turnstile. The light flashed green. The gate clicked open. He walked through. On the main elevator bank, people jostled into cars headed for familiar floors. 22, 31, 40. He stepped into an empty car and waited a beat. No one followed. He raised his badge to the small reader beside the hidden panel. The touchpad blinked awake. He pressed the outline of the number that was not listed anywhere else. 58. The door slid shut. The elevator rose. By the time it stopped, his ears had popped again. He stepped into the quiet hallway, the gray walls and dark carpet a world away from the chatter downstairs. The doors to the lab recognized Cassandra's credentials almost as quickly as they recognized his now. The access list had been updated overnight. Inside, the air felt cooler and more focused. The consoles glowed. The lattice of auriclenet overhead pulsed with a slightly steadier rhythm today. The irregular hitch he had noticed before was still there, but smaller, like a bruise beginning to fade. Several people already sat at their stations. A woman with close-cropped hair, eyes sharp behind rectangular glasses. A man with a beard and a thick sweater despite the climate control. A younger engineer spinning slightly in his chair as he scanned two monitors at once. They looked up when Noah walked in. Their eyes dropped to his badge, then back to his face, measuring. The woman nodded once in greeting. "Morning," she said. "Morning," he replied. He still did not know all their names. He would. There would be time for that. Cassandra stood near the central console, sleeves rolled up a little past her wrists, a mug of something steaming at her elbow. She had traded the dress for a dark shirt and pants clothes that moved easily. Her hair was pulled back, less precise than usual. "You are on time," she said as he approached. "That feels like the bare minimum," he said. "Low bar," she said. "You will be clearing higher ones before lunch." He set his bag down next to the console, careful not to knock anything over, then reached inside and pulled out Lily's drawing. Paper looked strange here, in a room where almost everything important existed in ones and zeros. He smoothed the edges with his thumb. Cassandra's eyes went to the drawing. "Is that the kite?" she asked. "You have heard about the kite," he said. "You mentioned it in passing," she said. "In the elevator. You talk more than you think you do." He held the paper up between them. The building, the two stick figures, the kite above tail fluttering. "She insisted on adding you," he said. I did not argue. Cassandra took the drawing carefully, as if it were more delicate than it looked. She studied it for a moment, her face unreadable. "She gave me good hair," she said. "More than I managed at that age," he said. She smiled, a small, genuine curve that reached her eyes this time. He reached for the main console keyboard. "Do you mind?" he asked. "Depends on what you are about to do to my system," she said. "You will see," he said. He slipped the drawing onto the flatbed of a small scanner built into the side of the console. The device hummed. A soft bar of light slid under the paper, capturing the lines and colors. On the largest display, a preview window popped up. The kite and the building and the two figures appeared in pixels slightly brighter than on the page. He adjusted the crop, then saved the image into a folder. A few keystrokes later, the background on the main auriclenet monitoring screen shifted. The default abstract gradient disappeared, replaced by Lily's drawing. The graph overlays floated above it, translucent lines and numbers moving across a sky drawn in crayon. The kite sat near the top of the screen point, aimed up. The string trailed down past colored graphs connecting to a stick figure at the bottom that now stood roughly where the console was in the room. Cassandra looked at the screen for a long moment. "You just put a child's art behind a multi-billion-dollar system," she said. "Yes," he said. "Any particular reason?" she asked. "It is easy to forget what this connects to," he said. "The reports, the numbers, the meetings. I needed something that reminds me the building is not the point." The woman with the short hair had turned her chair slightly to see. She studied the screen, then nodded once, as if the choice made sense. Cassandra picked up her mug and took a slow sip. "It will drive the design team crazy," she said. "They like the standard colors." "They will survive," he said. She set the mug down. "We have a lot to cover today," she said. "Damage assessment, containment, a communication plan that does not sound like it was written by Legal for Legal." "Just another Tuesday," he said. She shook her head. "No," she said, "a better one." He stepped to the console and let his eyes move over the displays. Input streams, error logs, predictive graphs, the familiar language of systems speaking in numbers and lines, underneath the uneven lines of Lily's crayon sky. He felt the usual shift in his focus, the way his mind settled into patterns and paths, tracing down threads to see where they led. The difference now was the space he stood in to do it, and the knowledge that if he needed to change something, he was allowed to. "Start with the loop," Blake tampered with, Cassandra said. "Our models suggest it tried to propagate a bias toward instability. I want to see what it actually did." "On it," he said. His fingers moved over the keys. Code scrolled. He opened windows, stacked them, pulled them apart again. The others in the room drifted closer in pairs and small groups, bringing their own pieces of understanding. They asked questions. He answered some. He asked more back. A rhythm began to form, uneven but promising the early stage of a team figuring out how to move without stepping on each other. Time blurred. The rain outside tapped a muffled beat on the distant roof. Somewhere down in the ordinary floors, people answered emails, filled out forms, made coffee. Up here, the world narrowed to a problem he could actually touch. Hours later, when the numbers on the wall clock edged toward 3, Noah's phone buzzed against the console. He glanced at the screen. School pickup reminder. He looked at Cassandra. I need to go, he said. I promised her I would not be late. You are not a prisoner here, she said. Go. We will pick up where we left off. He logged out of his session and slung his bag over his shoulder. As he turned toward the door, he paused and looked back at the main screen. The kite seemed to float above the moving graphs. The sun in the corner smiled down at a universe of data that did not know it was being watched by crayons. Keep an eye on it for me, he said. We will, Cassandra said. The hallway outside was as quiet as always. The elevator ride down felt different, no, not like a fall, more like a passage between layers of the same world. In the lobby, Harper glanced up as Noah passed. Their eyes met. There was understanding there now, thin but real. Outside, the rain had eased again. The clouds were still thick, but a lighter gray edged in places where sun wanted to break through. Noah walked to his car, unlocked it, and slid behind the wheel. Lily's seat in the back waited straps loose. He checked the clock. He would make it with time to spare. As he pulled away from the building, he caught its reflection in his rearview mirror. Glass and steel and lights. A place that had broken him once, and then handed him something unexpected. The road ahead was wet but clear. He drove toward the school, toward a red hoodie and a kite drawing, and a voice that would spill out the story of Saturn and a missing sock in one breath. Behind him, high on the 58th floor, a field of numbers shifted and settled in new patterns over a child's drawing of a sky where kites did not get lost as long as someone held the string. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.